Good afternoon. Thank you very much, everybody, for inviting me to come along and speak for 5 minutes. I'm going to go timer start now. My colleague Stephen is with me in support today. I'd like to start by asking how many of you here have been to Karori Cemetery and got out alive? Excellent, excellent. The getting out alive part is particularly good. It's good to see so many familiar faces from my old Port Nick Rotary days as well. Great pleasure. I'm going to talk to you this morning about a project that's been running in Karori Cemetery since October 2016. We are focused on the people in Wellington who died during the 1918 influenza epidemic and were buried at Karori. Like so many others, of the millions who died worldwide in a very short period of time, they've mostly been forgotten, the people who are buried at Karori. Their plots where they actually have graves are in a sad state, overgrown, covered in mess, often broken. So we've been doing some work to clear and clean. This is one of the worst areas that we've worked in. Unfortunately, it's looking a bit like that again, but we'll tidy it up in the next few weeks prior to all of you coming along to hear some of our stories. Wellington was one of the worst death rates, and on the 19th of November, 63 people were buried in separate plots in that one day. I don't know how there were enough people who were well enough to do the digging. That was the peak day in the cemetery. The actual peak in Wellington followed slightly afterwards. Daily burials for the 4 different denominations of interest. You'll note public is the largest. That's anybody who isn't Jewish, Catholic or Anglican. And that was 63 people on the 19th of November. The cemetery occupies 100 acres of land up in Karori, and there are 4 different areas where a whole group of volunteers have been turning up regularly to do some cleaning. In here there's the Anglicans, 149 of them, 107 Catholics in slightly different areas within the larger Catholic, 285 down here in the depths of what's called Gum Gully, and up here actually 108, not 100, soldiers who died, many of whom were at Trentham in training. They never, of course, got to go to war, but they did die. Here's one of the plots before we got onto it. Here it is after we cleaned it up, just with water and a bit of gentle rubbing and scrubbing and brushing. Captain Druitt is the occupant, along with his wife, who was the captain of the Monowai. Many, many mariners and seamen and waterside workers died. They were also a transmission vector for the influenza spreading southwards and around the country. Here's one of our volunteers in the process of cleaning a headstone. You can see it's gradually being revealed. Firstly, we didn't know there was one here on what's called the ledger, second headstone, and then a third that she's working on. That too came up beautifully as like Captain Druitt's. So they're now readable, those who have actually got a headstone. In November, because this is an event that's essentially fallen from the collective memory, we're running commemoration days. We've carefully timed them for the 18th, so as to avoid Armistice Day, which is important in its own right, and the following weekend on Sunday. We'll be running guided tours around those 4 areas, and we'll have an information kiosk in the mortuary chapel. Do come along if you can. In 5 minutes, I have been able to give you only the very briefest outline. Stephen, however, has information about our website, which contains more than 160 stories of people who died. It's become some fascinating reading, and there's a list of all those who are buried in the cemetery. So if you think you know someone, look them up, and we'll pass around that information. Thank you very much for listening. And I've got 7 seconds still to go. Okay?
Thank you, Bob.
Fine.